When a tired polar bear kept chasing after a man in a boat, he didn't know what was going on, but once he found out why, he couldn't hold back his tears. Tour guide Roland Warrior was out on a regular trip with some tourists, sharing stories about the local traditions, when he noticed something strange in the water. He was sitting at the back of his small wooden boat, steering the motor across the ocean near Kaktovik, Alaska, heading toward the Beaufort Sea. While checking the engine, which had started sputtering, something white caught his eye, floating less than 100 feet away. Roland leaned in, squinting for a better look. As an Inupiat guide, he knew the local wildlife well, and right away he recognized the shape of a polar bear. But something was off. The bear wasn't moving much, and they were already a good distance from any shore. Roland slowed the boat to a gentle drift. He apologized to the tourists, explaining that polar bears were protected around here, and this could be a rare chance to see one up close. But two of the tourists weren't having it. They were scared, knowing how dangerous a polar bear could be, and insisted on heading straight to their destination. Roland tried to ease their worries, telling them how often he encountered polar bears out here, but they wouldn't budge. Respecting their wishes, he sighed and fired up the motor again. As they moved away, Roland silently hoped that if the bear needed help, it would still be there when he returned. But he didn't need to hope for long. He soon realized the bear was following them, slowly paddling through the water. It wasn't his imagination. The big white animal was definitely trailing the boat. After dropping the tourists off on a nearby island, Roland turned his boat back toward the bear. By now, the bear had already closed a lot of the distance between them. As Roland got closer, he radioed a nearby lookout for help. If something was wrong, he knew he couldn't handle it alone. Thankfully, a research team was nearby, but Roland told them they needed to hurry. As he drew closer, Roland's heart sank. He could see the bear was tangled in a fishing net. It twisted and pulled, trying to free itself, but only ended up wasting more energy. Roland didn't know it yet, but this poor animal had already been struggling in the water for half a day and was running out of strength fast. Seeing the bear so exhausted and helpless broke something inside him. Tears streamed down Roland's face. Like everyone in his community, he loved and respected the wildlife deeply, and it hurt to see the great animal suffering like this. They could see the environment around them changing fast, and the animals were the first to suffer. Roland felt deep down that he had to help this bear. It wasn't unusual to spot polar bears hunting alone, but seeing one trapped so far from shore, caught in a man-made net, was heartbreaking. Still, even tangled up like this, Roland knew the bear could attack if he wasn't careful. Grabbing a thick rope from his boat, Roland tied it into a big loose noose. If he could loop it around the bear, he might keep it afloat until help arrived. He swung the rope like a lasso and tossed it toward the bear, landing it perfectly on the first try. But as soon as he tightened it gently around the bear's body, he realized just how tough this was going to be. Even floating in the water, the bear was incredibly heavy, about 900 pounds, the size of a grand piano. Within minutes, Roland's arms were burning with pain. To make it harder, the bear was twisting and writhing, now fighting against two ropes instead of one. Roland gritted his teeth, holding on tight, hoping the research team would show up soon. To his surprise, it wasn't the researchers who came first. It was a group of fellow Inupiat fishermen who had seen him from a distance. With 3 of them now, they took turns holding the rope, keeping the bear's head above water and slowly trying to guide it toward the shore. But the bear wasn't making it easy. It fought them hard, splashing and jerking around, dragging their boats like toys. Even with their combined strength, they were barely making progress. Thankfully, the research team arrived just in time. Without wasting a second, they grabbed their equipment and fired a strong tranquilizer at the bear. They explained that it would take a few minutes to kick in, but once it did, it would calm the animal down. Sure enough, as the sedative took hold, the bear's muscles loosened and its fighting slowed. Roland, still feeling emotional, wiped the tears from his face with the sleeve of his shirt, reminding himself that the work wasn't done yet. With everyone pitching in, scientists and fishermen together, they managed to gently pull the bear toward the shore. It took a huge effort to haul the heavy animal onto its back, but they did it. Carefully, they began untangling the net, which had wound itself through every limb, getting tighter the more the bear had struggled. It wasn't easy, and once they got the last strands free, a tense moment followed. The Inupiat fishermen thought their work was done, but it was clear the scientists were getting ready for something else entirely. Roland's community had never fully trusted this team. Even though the scientists had been hanging around for years, poking and studying, the Inupiat people hadn't really seen them save any animals before. Honestly, that's why Roland had hesitated to call them for help in the first place. For centuries, the Inupiat had been the guardians of the local polar bear population. Their customs and way of life taught them to protect the land and all the creatures living on it. So when a group of researchers from a university in California first showed up, plenty of people were wary. The scientists said they were writing papers and helping with conservation, but the Inupiat had heard too many stories from other indigenous groups. Stories about people who came with promises only to open the door for deep-sea mining and other damage. Roland's people knew better than to blindly trust anyone. Tourists were one thing. They came to see the beauty of the land and brought some much-needed income. But when it came to scientists, it was harder to know what their real goals were. Now, seeing the polar bear laid out on the shore, Roland and the other fishermen grew uneasy. When the scientists opened a medical bag, it was filled with syringes, scalpels, and knives. "Don't hurt the Nanook!" one of the fishermen shouted, using their word for polar bear. "It's our job to protect them." Tension filled the air as the fishermen edged closer, their faces full of anger and fear. The researchers tried to explain themselves, speaking quickly and waving their hands to calm the group, but the years of mistrust were hard to silence. Roland, feeling the weight of the moment, stepped in between them. He raised his hands, trying to ease both sides, knowing the last thing anyone needed was a fight. Roland told his fellow Inupiat that there was no need to distrust the scientists just yet, and asked them to let the team do their work. One of the scientists gave a quick thank you, and they got started. With gloved hands, the team carefully checked over every part of the bear's body. They explained they were looking for injuries before checking the bear's heart rate, pupils, and claws. Finally, they gently attached a tiny piece of plastic just above its shoulder. They said it would allow them to track and monitor the bear, making it easier to find and help if it ever got into trouble again. After finishing their checks, everyone slowly moved farther inland to give the bear space to wake up and recover. Before long, the polar bear was stirring, rolling around in the sand, then wobbling to its feet. It gave a big shake, spraying water and sand everywhere like it was shaking off a bad dream, and then, without hesitation, plunged back into the sea and swam away strong and free. The group on the shore cheered, full of joy. Watching the bear return to the wild, Roland and his fellow tribesmen realized that this time the scientists really were here to help. Since that day, the Inupiat community has worked closely with the researchers, sharing their deep knowledge of the land and the wildlife. The scientists listened and used that wisdom to help protect the area even more. What an incredible story. What would you have done if you were one of the tourists on Roland's boat? Would you have trusted the scientists, standing there as part of the Inupiat community? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.